Good evening. Welcome to tonight's fantastic session, AMA Ask Me Anything. Really looking forward to welcoming you. And we're looking for rather Christmassy, don't you think? We thought, as it was my final show before the end of the year, I'd at least make myself look a little bit more presentable, a bit more elf-like. Welcome to everybody across the world. We have some fantastic people, got lots of people in the chat already. This is a special session about lenses. We have three fabulous technical experts, and I want to bring them straight on because we're going to go straight into the show. So firstly, let's welcome David Smith from the UK.
Hey!
Hey,
Happy Christmas!
Happy Christmas! You're looking very festive, very festive.
Oh, so are you. You've got a way better background than me today.
Right, and also we are now welcoming in Tito or Martin Garcia from Spain.
Hey, how are you? Hey. Happy Christmas, everybody. Hello,
hey,
everyone. How are you?
Lovely to see you, Tito. How are you? Looking very Christmassy too.
Yeah. That's the moment during Christmas that we have to enjoy. First of all, everything should be a party.
Yay, that's what sounds great. I love a party. We love a party. We love a party. Okay, and our final TE hails from Poland. He basically covers and does everything in Poland. We call him Przemysław. We call him PJ. Hey, PJ.
Hi, hello. Hey. Dzień dobry, hello.
Hey, lovely for you to join us, PJ. We're so pleased that you're coming and talking to our group tonight. And we know English is your first language, but you are in safe hands because we're so looking forward to you meeting all the customers out there. So Dave, Tito, PJ, are you all ready for this? There are lots of questions coming in, so we're going to go straight in. Right, Dave's loving it. Come on, David.
For sure.
Come on, David. Dax is loving it. Yes.
Cheers.
Okay, we're going to go straight in with a question from Al Berger, who says, what's better, the 12100 Pro or the 12200? Now, very different lenses. David, what do you think?
Yeah, no, they are very different lenses. And I think there are some really critical differences between them, aside from the fact that one of them is the kind of M.Zuiko Premium and the next one is the M.Zuiko Pro. So obviously there are some major differences. The build material is different, but they're both weather sealed. So you're getting really kind of like robust lenses out of both of these. Now, but pros and cons, you're going to get a little bit of extra zoom from the 12-200, of course. It's going to take you a little bit further out. It's lighter as well. So if weight's a big factor for you, then that's going to sort of swing you that way as well. But then on the other side of the 12-100 Pro, you've got the benefit of the image stabilization that synchronizes with many of the bodies to give you that kind of extra image sort of stiffness when you're shooting. So I think what you need to think about is you need to sort of be critical about what points are really important to you when you think about both of these lenses. And either way, if you get stuck out in a rain shower, they're both going to respond in the same way. They're going to be absolutely fine anyway.
Yeah, if you want like one lens for travel and you want the focal length, then that's the one, isn't it? But, you know, the 12-100 is a staple for everybody in a lot of people's bags. You know, people like say it's one of their favorite lenses alongside the 40 to 150 2.8. The 12-100 is up there with the best of the best, isn't it?
Absolutely. And you know what? The thing is, you get some extra features from the 12-100 as well. So you've got the compatibility with things like focus stacking. You know, if that's important to you, you want to do that sort of close up, not quite macro, but close up focus stacking, and also for landscapes, focus stacking at 12mm. That's really an added benefit, and that's something you don't get from the 12-200 as well. So
there you go. Wonderful. We hope that's answered your question. We're going to go straight in. Another question from PGY. So I apologize if that's not how you pronounce it, but it says, why don't Olympus cameras recognize the aperture ring on Panasonic lenses such as the 15mm f1.7? Tito, over to you.
Okay, Claire, thanks. I'm not so sure, but I think if you have the aperture on the ring, probably you don't have electronic communication between the camera and the body. We don't have that information from Pana. Maybe that's the question. The camera that is not recognizing the f-stop, the aperture from the ring. In that case, you can try. I'm not so sure why.
There are so many.
I have a concrete sense. Question.
Yeah, with other brand lenses, it's not just down to the Panasonic brand. With other brand lenses and with older lenses, there are always so many differentials, aren't there? You know, some have manual focus, some have manual aperturing, there are so many differences. So it really does depend on the specific lens that you're trying to sort of pair 100% with the body. But yeah, I hope that answers your question. Alexander, the next question from Alexander Mavrogodotato. That's not how you pronounce it, but apologies. It says, with the 100 to 400, I find the images soften at the 400 limit. Is this normal? PJ, do you want to get stuck into this one?
I think in that 50 millimeter, 400 millimeter focal length, you have very shallow depth field. You have very big zoom and big, I don't know in English. Sorry. And sometimes you can don't have focus on point to what you need to have in focus. You don't have much. Sorry, again. I'm too stressed. Sorry for my English, and I'm too stressed. Maybe send my next question.
Yeah, like you're saying, I mean, it could be so many things, couldn't it, David? It could be
absolutely. And I think I know exactly what PJ is trying to say, and I don't know the words for it in Polish either. So there we are on the same page there. But I think what PJ is saying is that at the 400 millimeter end of a telephoto, you've got, as he said, very narrow depth of field and super amounts of compression because of that, you know, focal length. It's really kind of pushing everything together. And if you do miss the focus, like PJ said, if you've just missed it, or if you're not quite on that, then the softness could be just a slightly out of focus area as well. And of course, you also need to bear in mind, if you start to pop any filters on your lenses, then there's this trade-off that we get because diffraction occurs and softness can happen with a screw-on filter as well. But if you're ever wondering if that's what's happening, you can always take the filter off and take some images and see if it's still there. But yeah, I'm pretty sure what PJ said at the start is probably right on the nail.
Yeah, you must remember this is the cheapest one, the equivalent to 800 millimeter on the market, and this is not pro lens like 150 to 400. And
like how he casually just goes, look at
yes, this one. yes.
Christmas light. He's the only one.
This is only one day with this lens for me.
That's why he's like, you're not leaving it.
This
alone,
is my
David.
excuse to come over and party with PJs to get my hands on that lens.
Yeah, and also I will add something, because softness. Maybe he's referring also to shaking, because the image is blurred, the image is shaked, the image, because maybe he's trusting on the stabilizer, and we are talking about in our highlight that we have 6.578 EV steps of stabilization, but we don't have so many steps when you are working with the 400 mils lens, and maybe you have to take a look about the shutter speed, maybe.
Yeah,
and also as well, remember there's a switch for IS on that lens. If you accidentally turn it off, which I've done loads of times on things like the 12 to 100, and I've kind of looked through my viewfinder and thought, wow, this is really not stable, and it's, you know, I've knocked an IS switch off, and that can sometimes have an effect.
Yeah, I mean, I find with the 100 to 400, because it's not internal zoom, that if you zoom and try to take pictures too quickly, you know, you know, there's that as well when you're so excited about the subject that's coming in, especially at that type of focal length. You've really got to, you know, the weight can dip a little tiny bit when you zoom out, and there's all those little tiny things. But if any doubts, Alexander, and you know, you can always get it checked out. That's the other thing. If you're thinking it's not perfect, let's have a look at it.
Yeah,
so
one more thing.
Yeah, go on.
PJ, you first.
For 400 millimeters, if you don't have OM1, I recommend use only image stabilization in the lens. Turn off image stabilization in body and use only image stabilization in the lens. I think you will have the best results from this lens.
Yeah,
okay, that's interesting.
Good advice.
Use the lens IS priority, so that if it's right up there at 400, it's really looking at that top of the telephoto movement. That's a really good point.
Yeah, and also sometimes when the longer the lens, the longer the focal length, the more air volume you have between you and the subject, and that maybe is also affecting to the sharpness. Yeah.
Good. I think they're going to take a lot out of that information and take that and process it. We're going to go straight into oh, why is that not going? Can't get that off the screen. Shayla, going to go into Matt Parson. Brilliant. My EF adapter that I use for Pen F does not fit the OM1. Can you recommend a Canon to OM1 adapter? That's interesting. I mean, obviously, it was always a Metabones adapter here in the UK, but they were nearly £1,000, I think. So those
are the ones we would probably recommend if you're going to do it. But I would be interested to know why the adapter works on the Pen F and not the OM1.
I know because I have this adapter. Any adapter from EF system to OM1 for this moment doesn't fit to OM1 because OM1 have bigger viewfinder and you can't put adapter to camera. Adapter is too big to OM1. It's no problem on EM1 second, EM1 third, EM1X, but in OM1 adapter have blocked with viewfinder.
So what are you recommending?
From my knowledge, any adapter now doesn't fit to OM1. Metabones, Victorx doesn't fit to OM1.
So basically, we're waiting for third parties to make stuff for the OM1.
Yes.
Right. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, so that's it, guys. I mean, as with any of these third-party things, they do take a few months to catch up. It's always the way. But, you know, OM1 is like one of the biggest selling cameras in the last year or so. So third-party manufacturers are making things. We've seen loads of things in the pipeline. So just keep your eyes out. And if not, just chase the manufacturers for them. That's what I would recommend. Okay.
Good idea is push Metabones directly and send email to Metabones.
Yeah, I mean, we do that here because the Metabones are actually quite good quality. They're good builds and they seem to be the ones. So, but as I said, they're nearly €1,000 now. So not very expensive, not very cheap, you know, quite expensive, but there you go. Okay, let's go in for another question. Charlie and Dana Harag. The question is the 825 Pro. How come you can't set it to show 24mm on the in-camera focal length display? Now, David, do you have an 825 with you?
Yeah, and I've seen it. I've tried this. So let me go and have a tinkle with one, and we'll see if we can. I'm going to remember where it is up here.
Here's one David prepared earlier. So it's always good. David has a whole studio there, but
yes. And I know that this is the thing. It's something that we might also have to look into because I believe it may well have even been Charlie that I saw mention this somewhere, and I tried it myself, and yeah, I think it does do that. But we'll have a little look. I'll pop it onto the camera.
So yeah, I mean, I didn't know that you can't set it to show 24mm on the in-camera focal length.
We'll have a wee look.
Now I'm assuming that there hasn't been a firmware for the 825, so we know that's that. And this is on the OM1, I assume, is it, David? Or is it on any?
I believe it's on anybody.
Okay.
Let me.
I don't know. We shall. Shall we move on to another question while we're having a look? Yeah, let's come back to that because otherwise we're staring at you, looking at something, which is the pressure is on. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. From 23 jumps to 25.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go to Evelyn Jacob while you guys are just having a look, and we'll answer another question. Or are we all right on this? Do we know, David?
Well, yeah, we've got there. So if we just go into here,
okay.
Let's just have a quick look at the bottom left there, at the corner of the screen, as we're kind of going through. We've got the 8mm end.
Right.
Oh, my name's kind of in the way there. Actually, I don't know if I can take my name away.
Take care of Dave. FA.
Yeah, so I'm just there we go, perfect. So thanks Michaela. Okay, so if we go down 8, 9, 10 all the way down, and then we get 21, 22, 23, 25. It is quite interesting. So this is.
And what about on a different? Can you just try it on a different aperture? I mean, I know that's not going to be the thing, but it's always good to just have a look.
23, 25. Yeah, it's pretty much the case. So this is quite interesting because it's
writing this down.
I don't know. It's a bit of an oddity, and it may well be for a purpose. I can't imagine it is, but it's something that we can definitely start to look at and go back to Japan with.
So Tito, you've noticed it too. I mean, it's not something you've come across before.
No. My first time. I have no idea about this.
I mean, it's exciting, but also I love an anomaly because it means the joy about our team is we have a direct line with Japan, and so we will email Japan straight away. It's a question that we can go straight into the team and say, why is this happening? And then what we will do is we will put it in the comments afterwards once we get an answer. We hope that helps. I mean, that's quite an anomaly, isn't it? An anomaly, if I can say it. But thanks for the question, Charlie and Danny. You've actually stumped us. It's one we've not been able to answer, but we will.
It's great, Claire, because I use the 8 to 25 mils from time to time, but with the widest angle view, So I don't use it. Usually I don't use it from 20 to 25, more or less, because for that I use the 12 to 40, and I've never seen that. That's
it's going to be one of those things now. I want everybody watching to go through every lens. No. See which focal points are missing. But that's very interesting, and we will find out for you. Okay, let's get on to the next question. We are plowing through the questions tonight because we did a lot of chatting last time, and a lot of people didn't get to their questions answered. So we hope this is helping. If you've got a question, put it in the chat, and we will try and get around to answering it. Okay. Evelyn Jacob says, what are the pluses and minuses of the various telephoto lenses for birds in flight? Now, out of the three of you, I'm going to say that Tito is going to answer this question because he does a lot of workshops with birds in flight. I know PJ does as well, but PJ does a lot of portraits and underwater and video, so I sort of know your strengths, I think. But if you got anything to add on after what Tito says, please jump in. Tito, what do you think?
Okay, it's not a short answer. It's not a short question. It's not a short answer. But I will make the difference between, first of all, between pro lenses and non-pro lenses, because we have in the standard lenses we have 75 to 300 millimeters lens, which is perfect for those who want to start and who want to, for those beginners in birding, bird photography, birds in flight. But also, what you are trying to find, you're trying to find AF speed, you're trying to find aperture, you're trying to find. You take the advantage of the lightweight because the 75 to 300 mil is shorter, is smaller, but it's not so precise, so accurate in out of focusing. It's not so light. It's not so bright. Sorry, it's not so fast. And if we go into the pro lenses, we can find several of them. I will say the telephoto lenses. I will compare mainly two of them: the 100 to 400 and 150 to 400 mils lens. Difference is 100 to 400 is not pro lens, but is width field. Is not so. The aperture is not constant. It's not. It's stabilized, but it's not IS sync stabilized as the 150 to 400 mil is, and more things, and also one important, really key factor for this is the speed, the shutter speed for between them. When you're using, the OM1, you can shoot up to 50 frames per second with continuous autofocusing, and the 100 and 400 mils just goes up to 25, more or less. This is like a summary. Okay, maybe I'm missing many things, but maybe you can help me. I would say if we are talking about telephoto lenses, I will limit into 100 to 400 and 150 to 400 mils. Of course, We also have the 300 mils f4 constant focal length, f4 also stabilized, IS sync stabilized, is really great. It's one of the sharpest lenses we have.
Yeah, I've got
but
to say,
the zoom, your legs are the zoom. You know, if you want to be closer and you have to farther, you have to move because it's a fixed focal length. And also we have an amazing lens. I love the 40-150. Probably is not the best. It's not a specific lens for birding because it's not too long. But I will say the 40-100 mils. I'm talking about the f2.8. Is the best lens to apply the 1.2 and 2 times teleconverters from my point of view, because you know, you're always when you mount any converter with the lens, you lose some light and you lose some sharpness. And with the 40-150 mils f2.8 is great to work, I will say, with both teleconverters. So you go to we have 300 mils equivalent, and we could go up to 600
it's one of my
5.6.
It's one of my favorite combinations because it's so light. The 40-152 in the 2 times, it's so light and small, but you still got the great so fast, and I just love that combination. All right, you haven't got quite the focal length of the 800, but it is such a good combination. If you're all about the weight, it's lovely. So go on, Martin. Sorry.
Did I miss anyone?
No, I think, I mean, it is right. It is about aperture, zoom. The 300 f4 to me is still one of our best lenses. If you know, obviously it's a bit more expensive than the 100-400, and obviously with the availability of the 154, you know, it's a little less hard and a lot more money. The 300 is, for me, still such a lens. It when it locks on, and it's so sharp, and the color rendition and everything about that lens is just beautiful. So it's always a way up, isn't it? It's always what is it you want first out of it? Is it reach or is it aperture?
I want to add something to this question. I bring my 100-400 because I love this lens for bird in flight only for one reason, because you can zoom by pump. You can target your birds like this, not zoom like this, only like this. You can target all birds in fly in the simplest.
PJ.
Well, I don't know why.
Again.
Okay, so I think that we'll go on to Simon's question. Simon says, and this is to you, PJ. We just talked about it a bit more, but let's cover it a bit more in length. About Simon Gidding says the 100-400 lens, IS, IBS, or both, given there's no IS sync. So tell us again how you find it best to use. You just showed a really good tip there by using the 100-400 width rather than the zoom ring, by pumping it. Also, you say that image stabilization on with the OM1 but off with the previous models.
For me, the best image quality you get from this lens from OM1 if you will use image stabilization in OM1 in all focal lengths, but in older camera like EM1 Mark III, EM1 Mark II, or EM5 series, I prefer use from 100 to 250 image stabilization in camera, and in longer focal lengths I use image stabilization on the lens. If I do photos of flying birds or flying planes, I use only image stabilization in not in camera, only in lens, because I must target fast moving subjects, and I think this is better idea. And I think image stabilization in lens take less power than image stabilization in camera. This is my observation.
And that's really interesting because there are lots and lots and lots of posts all over forums all over the world about using the 100 to 400, because obviously the image stabilization is different to everything else we've done before. And so it's quite unique. It stands on its own. And it is a really good tip. Like you say, if it's anything between 100 and 250, you would use the body on in camera stabilization, and then anything over, and this is on the O1. So really interesting thoughts there, guys. So if you do own the 100 to 400, you know, worth trying out some of PJ's tips, because as I said, you know, maybe did the different stabilizations work at different lengths better, and I love that tip. So
and small tip how to change stabilization in photos very quickly. You must turn on stabilization in camera and the lens. In menu, you can choose priority of image stabilization in the lens, and when you turn off stabilization on the lens, camera will switch to image stabilization on camera, and this is the fastest way to switch between these two image stabilization. But you must have in camera set priority for image stabilization in the lens.
Brilliant, amazing. I love that tip. Well done, awesome, Simon. I hope that answered your question, and anybody else out there who's got the 100 to 400 wants to get the best out of it. Okay, let's go to, excuse me, let's go to Lynn Oliver. Lynn says, can you use all of the computational photography features of the OM1 with the 12200? David, over to you.
First of all, can I check that you can hear me, because I've got gremlins at the moment? Are you still hearing me?
We can hear you.
I lost the mic up. It's gone up to the backup mic. I know PJ's like me. We've got loads of little PJ backup things down here. My backups all just kicked in as well. So yeah, to answer that, in terms of computational features of the OM1, so we would look at we would talk about things like high res, live ND, focus bracketing, focus stacking, live composite, live time, those kind of things. Realistically, the only thing that you're not going to achieve out of all of those things with a 12 to 200 is the in-camera focus stacking, the build of an in-camera stack. You can bracket. So if you wanted to make that stack outside in post-production software and things like that, you can still bracket with the 12 to 200. But you'll not get the in-camera focus stacking. You'll get high res. That'll all work. Live ND is on sensor, so you don't need to worry about all that. It's all based on algorithms. So you really don't lose much at all.
Brilliant. That's great. So 12-200 again. Great travel lens. Great. Does everything. That's the thing, isn't it? So amazing. Let's go to Toon Townsend now. I am going to come back to David for this, because David is the subject matter expert for macro across Europe. So Sue Townsend says, I'm still struggling with the macro 60mm. Can you comment? That's a difficult one, that, because it's a bit of a sweeping question, but
yeah, no, it is. And the thing is as well, Sue, you're not on your own, because if you're not familiar with the kind of the macro facility, the macro functionality, particularly when shooting at a 1-to-1 ratio, which is the closest magnification that the 60 can shoot at, then it's not immediately obvious some ways that you'll need to handle that lens. So if you do want to shoot with a 1-to-1 ratio, you're probably going to want to put the lens into manual focus, turn that focus limiter switch to 1-to-1, and then that locks it at a very specific focusing distance. That's why when you're in manual, it's easier to kind of come backwards and forwards with the camera and lens combination. We do, obviously, we're producing lots of Zoom presentations and classes. And we will do some on the macro stuff going into the new year. We're putting loads of stuff out there. We're filling up the events page. And it's really important to get onto those so that you can physically see how that happens.
Yeah.
With the 60, you've got to remember your working distances. So we talk about focusing distances being like 0.19 meters at a minimum. But that's the distance from the sensor to the subject. So when we think about working distances, that's from the end of the lens, the front optical element of the lens to the subject, and that's a lot smaller. So that's like on the 60mm, that's like 8.3 centimeters away from the end of the lens. So that's probably the first step, is don't mistake the working distance with the focusing distance. And then, you know, we've got tons and tons of material to help you with that, but ultimately you can reach out to us as well, and we can give you a little bit more guidance. And the thing with this is, it is a very wide spectrum question about, you know, I'm struggling with it. There could be different parts that you're struggling with. So if you're more precise, we can help a bit better.
Good stuff. Thank you very much. So if you've only just joined us, welcome to the Ask Me Anything session for December. It's December. We are going to be trying to put these on regularly, and this is the opportunity to drop in and say hello and ask us anything. We're going for a lens version this time round. We thought it'd be quite fun to sort of align with our cashback that we've got at the moment. We said, why don't we talk all about lenses, especially if you're thinking about making a purchase for Christmas or giving someone a voucher or something like that, and maybe you've got a choice. Is it the 7-14 or the 8-25, or is it one of the, it's always good to come in and drop in and ask. So we are going flying through the questions because, as I said last time, I chatted too much, and we want to answer some more questions. So we're going to keep going on. Well done, guys. Everybody had a drink and everybody all still there. We've got a really interesting question from Stefan, who says, why is the manual focus clutch missing on the newest OM System Pro lenses, such as the 20mm f1.4? Tito.
Okay. Yeah, this is there's a reason behind, because all of the 12 to 45, even the 8 to 25, the 40 to 150. Yeah, the f4 family lenses is just to make them smaller and lighter. And also, if you include the focus clutch, you need a bigger lens. And the reason for those lenses is because of the lightweight. Also, we have two ranges,
That's right.
f2.8 and f4 lenses, and with the f4 lenses we miss a couple of things. We miss the focus clutch for that reason, and also the lens f function button. But the reason is that we want to have smaller lenses, more traveler lenses, lighter lenses, so that your backpack will be much more.
Yeah, I mean, I love my OM5 with the f4 lenses. I have my little 1245 here, which I was using earlier. And, obviously when you have everything to play with, you automatically go for the flagship. I've always done that in my sort of career at Olympus. But in the last 2 months, I have not put the OM5 down. I've been using it for everything. And I'm so enjoying it because it just gets thrown in a backpack. I've not been out on photography day, so I don't need all the stuff, but I've just been taking a camera everywhere with me. And you're right, isn't it? The fact that we've got the f4 range, the 2.8 range, it means you get a lot more choice as a consumer. There's a bit of a difference between them as well, but what you're not losing is you're not losing optical quality, you're not losing the weather sealing. They're still pro lenses, so you're getting what you need, which is the good glass and the good coatings in a smaller and a little bit cheaper cost. So Stefan, hope that answers your question. Trevor's up next. Hello, Trevor. I was with Trevor last week. Trevor Ager is on the questions. He says, just what I said, the 7-14 or the 8-25. Right. Okay. So I'm going to answer this in the fact that since I've had my 8-25, I've not put it down. And that's because it's small and it's light and it's pin sharp. And I love the range. I love the 25 end because it's great for video. It's great for portraits. It can be used. That extra focal length at the end is amazing. Now, I know we're giving up f4 over 2.8, but it's okay because the 8-25 is such a beautiful lens to use. Obviously, for things like Astro, you're going to want the extra light. So maybe that's why you want the 7-14. But since I've had both, I've got to say the 8-25 has not left my bag. What about you, David? What's your preference?
Yeah, I mean, again, the 8-25 gives me more flexibility, particularly if I'm going to think about using my my physical ND filters. So it makes things a little bit easier there. It is lighter. I mean, the 7-14 really comes into its own at night. That's kind of where I would continue to use the 7-14. But for pretty much everything else, the 8-25 is really shooting shots at the moment.
And PJ, do you use the 825 for video? Have you sort of, is this something that you've, so I know you do a fair bit of video. Is that something you've used?
I use both of these lenses. 8 to 25 I use only for architecture, for landscapes, for still images. 7 to 14 I prefer for video because on every gimbals and like this 740 is simple to level up on gimbals because it's shorter one. And 740 I prefer for sports, for extreme sports, because it's faster than 8 to 25 in autofocus. And this I can look, camera is sharper and faster on wide angle.
Right. Okay. What about you, Tito? Have you got a preference and why?
Yeah, I will say you have touched, I think, all of the reasons, but I have no preferences because I love both. When I go to the night, when I go to shoot some nightscapes, I prefer 7 to 14 because of the light, because it's brighter. But when I travel as an adventurer, I prefer the 8 to 25 because it's lighter, and also it's more versatile and more flexible in terms of focal length. And also, if I want to mount some filters, the thread, I can use thread filters. I don't have to use filter holders. So depending on shooting, but if I have to decide, if you are asking me what's my preference, I will say the 8 to 25 years because of my style,
Yeah, I think it's like, I just feel the 8 to 25 is a bit more of an all-rounder. The 725 is a bit more specialist, but like you say, it really does depend. Obviously, if anybody out there has a lens that they want specifically, I mean, 12mm 1.2. I mean, that would be nice on Santa's wish list. As I said, people ask for that all the time.
Yeah, and even in the past, I traveled and I went to the mountain with the several filters, polarizers and ND filters. Now I use just the polarizer because the ND filter is on the camera. So it's much lighter.
Yeah. It's interesting. If I have been asked many times, especially by Astro guys, is they'd love a 12mm 1.2. We always ask. We put it in the little Santa letter, the letter to Santa, and we always ask him. But hey, who knows? Okay, let's move on. Everybody okay? So Gary from Dover, just around the corner. Gary, does the Pro mean that only those lenses can be used with focus stacking, bracketing, and Pro capture, please? So this is an interesting one. PJ, I'm going to go straight over to you. Tell Gary what we know about the Pro version of lenses.
Pro lens version of lenses is the best quality what we can provide in lenses, and this is the best water sealed lens with the best quality, fastest lens. I think this means Pro in name of these lenses. Of course, you can use all this lens for focus bracketing, focus stacking, for all computational photography. You can use this for Pro capture. Of course, you can use also premium lenses for a lot of this functionality, and you can use premium lenses for capture, of course, if you need.
Yeah, and so there are only a few lenses that you can't use with focus stacking. 1.2s. The f1.2s, they don't focus stack. The 12-200 you said, David, in cameras, not the, and there's one more. Is the 20mm 1.4 that doesn't focus stack in camera either, does it? So I think that's it. I think, rack my little brain. I think it's only those 5 that don't stack. What about the 14? The 14 to 150?
No. So I think we've got in the list, off the top of my head, we've got a compatibility table on the Learn Center. And I think we're looking at, so non-pro lenses that will stack, you're looking at the 60 and the 30, because obviously they're macro lenses. And then into the pro lenses that do stack, you've got the 12 to 40, both versions. The 12 to 100, the 7 to 14, the 100 to 400, the 8 to 25. The 100 to 400 is the other pro lens that stacks that's not non-pro lens that stacks.
Yeah.
And of course, the
And also
the
f4
unicorn
lenses.
that PJ's got there, the 150 to 400, that's a stacker as well.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you always need to make sure that your firmware on your lenses is updated. That's the other thing, because if we've bought out a firmware update for a camera, you know, people will always do the firmware updates for the cameras, but they never do the lenses. And let me tell you, there are so many firmware updates for 60mm, 1240. I mean, the list goes on. So when you do your firmware updates, make sure that your lens updates are done as well. Quite important for the compatibility things.
This is the biggest problem when people buy MC20 to 400 to 150, and well, my lens doesn't work because we don't have
You've got to do the updates.
Yes.
You've got to do the updates. So yeah, it's
Always
quite
do the
important
updates.
that, you know, you want the camera to work at its peak and its premium, and of course those algorithms and those updates are happening all the time, and they do affect the lenses as well. So hopefully, Gary, that answered your question. So Terry's in. Hello, Terry. Love to see you. Hope you are doing well. Terry says, any advantages in owning the 30mm if you have the 60? I say yes, because they're completely different lenses. The 30 is my run around lens when I'm not being too serious, a macro photographer, when I'm just going out for fun, and it's more, so that's what I use my 30 for. My 60 is when I've got my flash attached and the converters, and I'm being a bit more sort of studious. I'm out laying on the forest floor with the fungi and stuff like that. David, you are our macro expert. Have you got anything to add?
Yeah, you know what? These two for me are always, I'm only ever using both of these for macro. Despite the fact that, the 60 can be used for portraits and the 30 is great for sort of mid-wide lens as well. The kind of combinational setups that I would use is I would use the 30mm for taking macro textures. I mean, this thing has a working distance of 1 centimeter from the end of the lens. You know, you're so close to things. Insects don't tend to like you being that close. So if you want to do barks and textures and textiles and things like that, and this is really good. And it works really well paired up with the STF8 twin head flash as well, because when you're getting that close, you really need some extra light pumping in there. So for me, I would be putting the 30 on my camera body with an STF8, getting real close up, doing some textures. The 60 is giving me some more distance. It gives me that 1-to-1 focusing ratio if I want to, and it works so well with an FL 700 or an FL 900 with the diffuser on the top, and I can get the more active kind of, I get the fauna with the 60 and the flora with the 30.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, let's not speak about the unspeakable. That's that everybody is asking us about. When we can't tell you when. You know,
I'll be waving it around when it does get in.
You know, we're not allowed to say when, but it's very exciting. We can't mention it, but yeah, imagine how much light you're going to get to it. Anyway, let's not go on that subject. We're going to the next question. And Tito, this one is for you, my darling. What does the LFN button found on the side of a lens do?
Yeah, this is a button in the Pro lenses. All of the Pro lenses, excepting the f4 lenses, have this lens function button. That means that you can assign plenty of functions you have on the camera, and all of the cameras. From my heart, talking from my heart, but I think the OM one has 43 different functions which can be applied with several. We have about 14, 15 buttons which can be we can memorize. We can use as custom functions. And this LFN lens button is for that. By default, when you buy the lens, this button has the locking of the focus assigned. You can assign all of the rest of the functions. You can apply. You can assign the focus peaking. You can assign the subject detection. You can assign so many things. Because of this function, this button is on the lens. I will suggest to assign functions related with the focusing. AF limiter.
AF limiter is a great one.
Yeah.
And it depends on the lens, doesn't it? Because, for instance, the 300mm, you might want to have the AF limiter on it, for instance, and yet for a shorter lens, the 1240, you might want focus stacking. So it does depend on your focal length, and I suppose depends on what you're photographing, right? So you might want focus stacking to come in and off. You might want manual focus to come in. There's so many variants depending, but I love it. It's very handy. Now, like, we know someone like Tesney Ward, who's one of our ambassadors. She uses focus limiter on it, doesn't she, David, on her LFM button? So
it's a really good one to use on that as well. I mean, like Tito said, it's by default it locks the focus, it stops focusing basically. But anything related to a focusing option on the lens is a perfect place to start, really, for a function.
Yeah, but if you're a photographer who is using manual focus, for example, that you are usually using manual focus, you can activate the focus speaking in that button.
Yes.
Yeah, everything related to focusing, because of this on the lens, I think is the best option.
Yeah. What about you, PJ? Have you got any special things that you like to put to a function button?
Sometimes I have my home autofocus point to set point to the center. To sport photography, sometimes I have one of the customs C1, C2, C3, C4 only for this lens to fast access to some full setup of settings for camera.
Nice. Love that. Now, Michelle just put up a question, which we will pop it back up, Michelle. She said, will we be doing a tutorial on using the LFN button? David, have you ever filmed a tutorial on the LFN?
It's a great question. Yeah, I mean, not specifically on the LFN button, but today I did list an event on customizing the camera, which includes button mapping. So there is a Zoom webinar that's up there with the 60 tickets on for that one. If that one goes well, we will run it again. So that would be a great place to start learning about what buttons do what, how to customize and map them, and also because there's a lot of other options involved with customizing a button. So it's not just a switch it on, switch it off function. There's a bit more to it. So that'd be a great place to start.
So I'm sure Michelle has put, there you go. Michelle has put the focus stacking compatibility list in the comments, although she has, and also, and as I said, there may be a link to what David's session, which is that tomorrow, David, that one?
No, that one's one of the January Zooms. So we are doing, Thursday sessions is Bocalicious.
Okay, so if you want any of the Zooms planned for next year, you need to go to My Olympus and go to the event section, and there you will see the whole of Europe's and the US, in fact global. It's a global events page. You can filter it depending on your language or depending on the genre, but if you just go down and you find the language that you want, maybe English isn't your first language, there's loads and loads of stuff. There's actually now a 2-year plan in there, and so David and I will be, and Martin and Tito and PJ will be filling up these slots with lots of different menu classes into next year. We are in the middle of planning as we speak, so keep your eyes out for that one. So yeah, I hope that's answered your question. Okay, we only have 10 minutes left, so let's go for Colby. Colby? Oh, could be a boy or girl, couldn't it? I'm going to say it's a boy. What lens should I get if I can't afford the big white lens? Oh, but want a great zoom. Right, okay, PJ, what do you think?
100 to 400. Only one answer.
We knew it.
Yes. But sometimes, if we have time to change, sometimes I recommend 400 to 150 with teleconverter MC20 to great zoom, because 440 to 150 have better quality than 100 to 400, and you have bigger universality of this set, but you need to have time to put converter between camera and body, camera and lens. If you have time, I think this is better setup. If you don't have time and you want photography do photos of flying birds or wildlife, and you want to change from 100 to 400, this lens is your answer.
Perfect. That is amazing. So yeah, 100 to 400 all the way. Okay, we're going to try and get through a few more. There are a few questions in there about lens functions and things. And as David says, there will be 60 tickets available for the Zoom. It's David's leading it, so it's a free Zoom, and it's worth getting in. As I said, David will know how quickly it books up to know if it's worth actually doing another one. So it's always good to, as I said, keep your eye on the page. And I think if we can't get to the question,
if it's booked up by the time we finish the live, I will list another one tomorrow.
Yay! See, and that's how we know they're really popular. So next question is from Corey. We have negative temperature days and snowstorms coming here in Indiana in the next couple of days. How well will my non-pro, non-weather sealed M.Zuiko lenses perform? Who wants this one? Tito? Well, you live in Spain. You don't get bad weather.
Yeah, it's not too cool. Yeah, we have some snow from time to time, but it's not too cold. But anyway, yeah, of course. Yeah, how well will my non-pro, non-weather seal micro Zuiko lenses perform in it? Honestly, I can't answer because I can answer. Okay, of course, I will answer. But of course, if this is very extreme conditions, of course, weather seal lenses are much better than non-weather seal lenses, sure. But not just because of the protection, the dust, the snow protection, the water splash protection, and also the temperature, low temperature, but also depending on the camera you have, if you don't have pro lenses, I presume that you don't have a pro camera, you don't have a high-end camera, and probably you have also problems with the batteries, Yeah. So, yeah, how well? There is, I don't have a chart saying from here to here you will work, from here to here you will not work. You can work, but obviously if it's really extreme and it's snowing and you have minus 20, 25 Celsius degrees, you will have problems. Probably your equipment will not respond as expected.
Yeah, I mean, and one of the reasons we do the pro lenses and we have like IP53 on everything coming out of the stable now is because we want you to take those lenses to far-flung places. They're small enough to carry. The idea is to be mobile. PJ, what do you think? You have the coldest weather out of all of us here, sat here. What do you think?
I think the most important is remember to, when you back from outside to inside, to put camera to small plastic bags, because when you have very big difference between temperature outside and inside, water from air puts inside camera, and the simplest way is put for 10 or 1 hour minutes or to 1 hour camera to plastic bags, because I don't know in English is in Polish compensation of water in air. Condensation of water in air is the reason why camera died after extreme weather when we don't have water sealed camera, and I think you must have a few batteries if you have extreme temperature outside. One close to a body, our body, under the jacket or something there, and second one in camera.
Yeah, that's so important. The batteries are such a good tip. Keep them within your clothing rather than in the camera bag. Like you say, they need to be at a good temperature to keep the life and the shot. So yeah, love that. We're running out of time, so I think we're going to get one more question in, because obviously it's 55 minutes. I think we've flew through them. And as I said, this is a monthly session, or just over a monthly session. So we will be back with lots of special editions and lots of different shows. But the answer is come join us, because I always think these are really, I always learn a little bit about certain things. And as I said, when you've got 4 brains coming in and answering a question, you always get a really good range of answers. Okay, David, is the Panasonic 14:140 compatible with OM5 Mark III for stacking?
Nope. It's a really, really simple one. So unfortunately, there are limitations to the non Olympus OM Micro Four Thirds lens ranges. Okay, so it's a great open standard, and we all love it for that. We love people using different lenses from different places.
Yeah.
But the certain functionalities, particularly when it comes to focus stacking, because there are some of our own lenses that don't work with focus stacking, and the reason for that is usually the lens's ability to focus very close. So if the lens doesn't have a great closest focusing distance, then that usually kind of takes it away from the possibility of focus stacking, which is why some of our own lenses don't do it. And no third-party lenses will focus stack, but you can use those third-party lenses to focus brackets, and then do that stacking in post-production. And you can do that in OM Workspace. You can do it in Lightroom and Photoshop, or specific softwares like Helicon Focus and things like that. So it's not the end of the world, but the in-camera feature, no.
Yeah, exactly. It's a workaround, isn't it? It's not a disaster. It's a workaround. You can still use it. You just got to bracket rather than focus stack.
Absolutely.
Okay, we're going to go for one more question, which is from Richard, and I want you to it says, I mainly work on a tripod with prime lenses, so can use any aperture. Is there any info on which aperture is optimal for these lenses? Tito?
Yeah, I will say our system allows you to work with the very the maximum aperture very well. And all of the lenses are a couple of steps over the maximum aperture. They have the, how's in English? The sweet point? Did you call it sweet point?
Sweet point, yeah.
Yeah, I would say Micro Four Thirds system is the system which can be used with the maximum aperture with the best results. And with the 1.2 lenses, every lens, but with the 1.2 lenses, if you work at f2, you will notice a bit better performance. Yeah, probably. Yeah. That 1.2 is amazing. F2 is a bit better.
What about you, David? Got anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, exactly what Tito said. That's precisely what it is. You can always kind of look at, we have the MTF charts available. So if you want to go real nerdy, you can go and look at MTF charts, which shows you, the graphs where we can see where the sharpest point versus the aperture comes in and things like that. But, reasonably speaking, and it's something that I've never been shy about saying, is whatever lens I use, I will go 1/3 of a stop to 2/3 of a stop narrower from its widest point to get really good sharpness. And many of our lenses work particularly well at around f5.6. It just seems to be a really nice zone for Micro Four Thirds. But like anything else, wide open on the pro lenses, you get fantastic quality and clarity. Stop it down a smidge and you're going to get real kind of unbelievable sharpness. At the other end of the scale, obviously, if you're heading towards f22, which is our narrowest aperture on the Micro Four Thirds lenses of ours, then you really will get diffraction. I mean, you shouldn't, for any reason other than pure creativity, be pushing them beyond kind of f11, f13, because you'll start to see that diffraction, which is physics anyway, start to come in.
Yeah. What about you, PJ? Anything to add?
I recommend use aperture between maximum wide open and double of maximum wide open. If I have 740, I use it between f2.8 to 5.6 always. But I never go over f8. Even lens like 100 to 400 have doubled is to f14. I always stop on f8. This is maximum aperture for me.
Wonderful. So I'm just going to have a quick look through the chat. You've all been amazing, as you always are. Just want to say
question.
to Tom
we have question about MC20 and for
Okay.
40 to 150 and software in the lens. I don't know who asked about it, but you must update firmware on the lens.
Yeah.
We talk about this soon.
Exactly. Yeah, you got to do, as I said, do your firmware updates. So just say Tom Ormerod said he puts live ND on his function button because that's sort of a menu. And he says that's really easy to put in there. So a great tip from David. There are lots of questions still coming in. We have run out of time. I'd like to say thank you to David, or Dax, as you may know him, to Martin, or Tito, as we know him, and to Premajlaj, or PJ, as we know him. They've all got different names to the ones that they're showing us. But just to say thank you, guys. You've been amazing. Honestly, your knowledge, I mean, it's just brilliant, and we absolutely love it. And I hope the end users and the guys watching have also enjoyed it. I wish you all a fabulous Merry Christmas. There, David has a tech session tomorrow, don't you, David?
No, Thursday.
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 Tech Thursday. Tito, have you got any live sessions coming up?
No, yet. I have to schedule a couple of live sessions for January.
Good stuff. So, and what about you, PJ? Have you got any live stuff coming up that we can look forward to? If you can speak
to New Year, I have 4.
Wow.
Tomorrow I have OM1 session. If you speak Polish, you are welcome, of course. On Thursday, I have a live session for my Facebook group, Micro Forfeit Poland. And I have also 2 trainings from long exposure between Christmas and New Year for New York fireworks.
See, fantastic. And you were worried that your English, you were struggling. You've been brilliant, as you always are. And thank you. It's not your first language, but you will be back. PJ will be back, as will Tito, and as will David, and as will myself. Wishing you all happy holidays and a very Merry Christmas. See you again.
Merry Christmas.